Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a new uh, type of a recording session. Took a long stint off, and I think I tried to record a couple of things that just never uploaded, but um, it's good to see you guys. Um, so I'm going to read the Wikipedia page of Jean-Jacques Rousseau today. And there's like many reasons for that. I was always fascinated with French culture, and even when I was young, I have very good parents. But one thing that I hold against them to this day is they, I wanted to take Spanish in middle school, or I wanted to take French in middle school, but they forced me to take Spanish because they thought it was more practical. And maybe in some ways it was. But French culture fascinated me back then and still does to this day. And and I would say for me, it's not just like it's lots of different things, but there's like the French Revolution, which I think is one of the most fascinating revolutions of our time. I'm like no historian, but it's just kind of hard to ignore the maybe even the juxtaposition between the American Revolution and the French Revolution. And it might just be the the boy in me that's more fascinated by the French Revolution because of all the blood and the guts. I mean, of course, people died in the American Revolution, but that guillotine thing was on its own level. And like I said, I'm no historian, but I think it's so fascinating that, like, some of the people who instigated the French Revolution were the very ones who ended up taking the blade to their neck in the end. And they got beheaded by the very machine that they thought was delivering the revolution into their hands, you know? I think that's just a very, like, interesting lesson in how human consciousness works and maybe how it doesn't work. And you know, humans are bloody messes, quite literally, many times. So I've been told that Rousseau is, in many ways, he's like, you know, he's one of the centerpieces of all of this French revolution, French philosophy. Looks like he was even a composer. I was unaware of that. So he's quite the Renaissance man, and it looks like he came from Geneva, the Republic of Geneva, where he seems to have taken a lot of pride in being from Geneva. It seems to be sort of an exclusive social order to be from Geneva, which seems to be a town. And like I said, I'm no expert, but it seems to be this town that's basically right on the border between Switzerland and France. And it's butted right up next to this beautiful lake. I mean, I can only imagine that it's very beautiful. It's called Lake Lemon. So I'm not going to pretend I know anything more than that because I really don't. And I'm just reading out the Wikipedia page. And who knows, maybe this will get stricken off of YouTube. I don't know all the rules. Anyway, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. This is about the philosopher. This article is about the philosopher for the director, see Jean-Jacques Rousseau, director. So this is just about his philosophical bent. Rousseau redirects here. For other uses, see Rousseau disambiguation. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Let's see, the 28th of June. This was his birthday, 1712, the 28th of June. And he died the 2nd of July. That's the day before my brother was born. He died. He was a Genevan philosopher, writer, and composer. His political philosophy influenced the progress of the Age of Enlightenment throughout Europe, as well as aspects of the French Revolution and the development of modern political, economic, educational thought. My birds are going crazy in my bathroom, so I'm going to actually help that for a second. All right, that was easy. So, yeah, so he influenced the French Revolution and the Enlightenment. Rousseau's discourse on inequality, which argues that the private property is the source of inequality in the social contract. Okay, so I just can't help myself here. I'm not trying to say that there's nothing good about Rousseau, okay? Because I'm sure there's all sorts of very bright spots in this man's life. My suspicion is that this guy was raised in extreme wealth, compared to like the bulk of France or Europe at the time. And yet, I don't know, it just sounds like flatulation to me. It's sort of like the Hollywood stars who line up for their awards in, for red carpet appearances. And, they know they're performers. Like, so it's not like it's all bad, but like performers know how to perform. They know better than anybody how to get the crowd involved and how to get them on the side, get the crowd on their side. And it's very easy to do that in like from an entertainment standpoint, and not actually be doing it in a genuine way. And what I simply mean by that is, like, it's so easy to say that you're for the poor. Like, that's so easy to say you're for the poor. To actually like live among the poor and help the poor and like live out Matthew 25 in a real way. And what I mean by Matthew 25 is the parable of the sheep and the goats, right? The sheep and the goats talks about like, like, where were you when I was hungry? Where were you when I was naked? Where were you when I was in prison? Where were you when I was sick? And and there's kind of two sides of that. There's the goats who weren't there, and then Jesus tells this parable in Matthew 25 where all of these people he categorizes as the goats, they weren't there for the poor, you know. And and then they're basically damned into eternal hell. And then vice versa, there's this group called the sheep who, I don't know, now that I think about it, maybe that's illustrative of the sheep of God's pasture, you know, God's sheep, who follow him and trust in him. I don't know if that's fair. I'd have to talk to Jesus when I die or whatever. But it's like, but they were there. They somehow, without knowing it, they were ministering to Jesus by how they were present for the poor, how they visited the sick, how they visited the lonely and the lost, and those in prison, and those who were hungry. And it's just really hard for a rich person to genuinely care about the poor, especially somebody who's famous and well-to-do and is kind of like the levers of power and the levers of influence are readily at their disposal. And yeah, like I've read up on Rousseau a little bit, and it just seems like he's going, my prediction, much like the French Revolution in some ways, my prediction of Rousseau is that he's going to be extremely complicated individual who might talk a much bigger game than he actually walks. Like his talk will be much more heavy than his walk. And it's just so interesting how we can become addicted to the power of our words, or to the sounds of our words, rather than our actions. And I'll just share one other story that kind of pertains to this, that I've been tossing and turning about a lot these days. And I live in Portland, Oregon, and there's this amazing ministry in Portland called Night Strike. And to me, it's basically like the hands and the feet of Jesus every week under the Burnside Bridge on Thursdays. And it's just amazing, honestly. It's like it feeds, I'm guessing, somewhere between like 200 and 300 people every week under the bridge in downtown. It also offers clean clothes, blankets, as well as like foot washing. You can get a haircut at Night Strike, free of charge. Foot washings, haircuts. You can get popcorn every week at Night Strike. And sometimes like musicians even play there. I've played there many times in the past. I work now on Thursdays, which isn't fun, but like I really miss it. And there's so many people who keep that ministry going and have kept it going for years. And probably my favorite person is this guy named Eric, who is a construction worker. He manages, I think he either manages his own company or he's in management. And he's just such a humble man, and he doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. And I think he's good with his words, but he's certainly not as prolific as Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And My guess is Rousseau would be captivating. I'm sure I would like really love taking in his genius, everything from his musical ability to his thoughts. But at the end of the day, like, as far as like who makes a bigger difference in society, and this is interesting too, right? Because we would also have to read up all on like France, and I know that the imbalance in just French society at the time of Rousseau was way out of whack, right? Like there was a reason the revolution happened. It wasn't contrived. Some big changes needed to occur, and they were backlogged even before Louis came into power. Like there was just really corrupt things happening at the expense of the people. So I'm not saying the revolution didn't need to happen, because it's very clear that it did. But it's just interesting to think about, like, sort of the seduction of becoming a revolutionary. How do we, if we're going to revolutionize the world, how do we want to be revolutionaries? And that's kind of a question that like is probably going to eat at me for the rest of my life. I'm 41 years old right now, and I want to finish as strong as I can. And I don't know where my life's going to head. I got some ideas. I want to, I have things that I want to accomplish. But I'm not sure what the order is going to be. And of course, ultimately, none of us know exactly how our lives are going to turn out. I think it's fair to say that America is aching for a revolution of sorts, and there's a lot hanging in the balance as to what that revolution is going to look like. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like, what are we talking about here? I think we're talking about a difference of, it's crazy to say this, but it's only like the difference of 250 years, right? Like, it's not that much. 250 years, that's crazy. 1776 to now is about, yeah, that's crazy. It seems like it's more than that, doesn't it? But it seems like we're due for a new revolution of sorts. All right, so Rousseau's discourse on inequality, which argues that private property is the source of inequality, and the social contract, which outlines the basis for a legitimate political order, are cornerstones in modern political and social thought. And that is for certain. Yeah, I don't think today is the same as the 1700s. And maybe I'm going to sound, maybe I'm going to piss people off who hear this, but I just don't, I don't sense that the people are quite as repressed as back in the 1700s. But we do have to be selective about what we listen to. And if we want to, we can listen to all of these voices of entitlement, that everything should be handed to us for free. But I'm not sure that that really stabilizes us or makes us stronger or smarter. To me, it's clear that if like we really want to get a leg up in this life, we have to start thinking like watch what people do, not what they say. watch watch what rich people do, not what rich people say. It's like a guy like Rousseau, he may have had some great points in his life. I'm sure he did. We're just cracking the beginning of it open. But like when it comes to politicians and actors and celebrities, I really think it's time for us to start looking at what these people do and not what they say. So like of course they're going to talk about like how much they want to give to the poor. Of course they're going to talk about all of these things, because that's good politics. But like what do they do? How do they actually live? How did they get wealth? Like some of them probably got wealth from their mom or their dad, but especially those who like built wealth themselves, how did they build wealth? And if we can't like, I'm not huge into the idea of like pointing a gun at somebody's head and forcing them to what give up what they have worked hard to build. Instead, why not like take cues from them on how they built and learn how to build ourselves? That's kind of my introductory thoughts to Rousseau, in relation to today. I'm sure he had all sorts of, especially when he was young, is my suspicion. He probably had all sorts of very poignant and accurate thoughts about society and what needed to change. He probably had all sorts of good thoughts, is my guess. But as far as like how we apply these thoughts today, my stance is, especially for young people, we need to stop complaining about all of the opportunities that we don't have, and we need to start seeing how many opportunities we do have and start seizing that and all the energy that we do have because we're young, you know? And I'm on the older side of young, but especially those who are younger, like it's time for us to use our youthful energy and the opportunities that are at our disposal. And I really believe we can start building lives that we're excited about. And if we really do care about the poor, if we really do want to be there for the poor, there's always Night Strike right underneath the bridge in Portland, you know, and there's all sorts of amazing ministries or outreach programs, or even I'm sure like social, I'm getting into waters that are deeper than I know of, but like if you want to make a difference for the poor, we can do that. Those options are on the table. But I think we need to be very leery of our words being bigger than our actions when it comes to the poor. It is so easy to use the poor as like a soapbox to stand on and talk about how much we like care about the poor, and then just walk away and do nothing for the poor. It's so hypocritical, and celebrities and politicians do it, and we do it too. And I think that's all I'm going to actually say for now. So the cool thing is I really didn't like read a lot of Wikipedia here. I just gave some of my own introductory thoughts here, and take it or leave it. But maybe we'll finish the rest of this very small introduction and call it good. Yeah, so he equated private property as the source of inequality in the social contract. I mean, let me just get really specific here when it comes to private property. This is the world we live in, guys. So Portland for the most part was like very pro mandate when COVID happened. To the point, like, to this day, I'm pretty sure like 99% of Portland would be happy to gallop back into the mandates if the opportunity presented itself. And what I mean by the mandates is lockdowns, masks, and social distancing. And what those mandates did was kill a lot of local businesses. And I'll just mention two in my neighborhood. Okay. So there was a boot shop off of Sandy and 82nd. It was really close to Sandy and 82nd. It may have been like a block or two off. But like, that was locally owned. It was called Boots. And, it made it clear that it sold boots. I forget exactly what it was called. But it was one of my favorite spots when I went in there. It was loaded with Carhartt stuff. It was loaded with all sorts of like utility clothing. And I loved that spot. And it didn't make it through 2020. Like, is that what we mean by the seizing of private property? Like, is that what we're excited to extinguish in Portland? That local business? What about the Euro place? This Greek spot called Giant Euro or Giant Gyro off of Burnside and 82nd. That place didn't make it. Like, it was another small business. And meanwhile, Walmart and Fred Meyer and all of these gigantic corporations just thrived. And what really confuses me about Portland is Portland doesn't seem to notice this. And yet Portland is supposed to be like punk rock and for the people and for the revolution. And meanwhile, they seem to be just like okay with what happened. Like, during 2020 and all of that local business lost. Like, wake up. Like, those mandates killed our own private property. It took away, and it poured into corporate monopolies, basically. Like, we really need to rethink what the revolution looks like, because if we think that that's the right direction to take the revolution, I think we've lost our minds. And don't even get me into the details of all of the rest of it. I mean, I will eventually. Trust me. Stay tuned. All right. So he thought the seizing of private property, the social contract, which outlines the basis for legitimate political order, are cornerstones in modern political and social thought. Rousseau's, I wonder if he gave up any of his own property. It'll be interesting to see. Like, was he just saying this stuff, or did he actually put actions to what he believed? Rousseau's sentimental novel Julie, or the New Halise, was important to the development of pre-romanticism and romanticism in fiction. His Emily on education is an educational treatise on the place of individual society, on the place of the individual in society, which is always an interesting balance, like between the community and the individual, is what I assume that is. I think that's a fascinating conversation that is always worth having. Rousseau's autobiographical writings, the posthumously published Confessions, interesting, because I think Augustine had Confessions as well, completed in 1770, which initiates the modern autobiography and unfinished reveries of the solitary walker, exemplified the late 18th century age of sensibility, and featured an increased focus on subjectivity and the introspection later characterized as modern writing. And of course, subjectivity would be, at least from what I understand, subjectivity to be is that truth is subjective; it's not objective. And I can actually side with that to a point, but I'm sure it doesn't surprise listeners by what I've said thus far, that like, since I've appealed to Christ himself, to Matthew 25, which I think is a capstone or a cornerstone chapter to lots of the questions that we have in society today, as well as Luke 15, if I'm honest, as far as the dilemma between the individual and the community. If we actually went to those texts, I think we would find a lot more stability, and we could confidently start tearing down things that maybe need to be torn down without tearing down too much. I believe ultimately God does exist. He does care about us, and therefore there is an ultimate truth. Yet getting to the truth can be pretty confusing sometimes, and things can get confusing for sure. Whether that would be the French Revolution or the American Civil War, these are all very interesting topics when it comes to what truth is. And feature and subjectivity and introspection later characterizes modern writing. Yeah. So I think that's about it. That was literally 2 small paragraphs for the introductory of Rousseau, and I'm pretty sure I talked just off the dome for like 95% of this video, which, to me substantiates that it shouldn't be put onto, or it shouldn't be taken off of YouTube just because I'm reading Wikipedia. Lots of this is like still, original thought, or somewhat original. I mean, in the end, like, nobody is a total original. I think obviously we all have unique makeup, and I think that's beautiful. There's never going to be another me. There's never going to be another you, whoever's listening to this. But we do end up either uncovering very old lies that go back thousands of years, and we buy into those lies, or we uncover timeless truths that go back thousands or millions of years. And it's kind of up to us to a point. So I think that's it for today. Let's see. Cool. All right. Thanks for listening.